When Joshua and all the other Israelites saw that the ambush had succeeded and that smoke was rising from the town, they turned and attacked the men of Ai. Meanwhile, the Israelites who were inside the town came out and attacked the enemy from the rear. So the men of Ai were caught in the middle, with Israelite fighters on both sides. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. Alright. So, we're looking at Joshua chapter 8 now. So then after Jericho was defeated, a guy took some of the stuff for himself that he wasn't supposed to. That got the entire Israelite people in trouble, or at least on God's bad side. And then they got into a fight, didn't go well. The troops were basically chased away from the town that they were trying to fight. And then it was found out. They got the stuff. They found the culprit. It's all taken care of now. So now they're back on God's good side. And that's where we get into things with chapter 8 here. So here we go. Joshua chapter 8. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid or discouraged. Take all your fighting men and attack Ai, for I have given you the king of Ai, his people, his town, and his land. You will destroy them as you destroyed Jericho and its king. But this time you may keep the plunder and the livestock for yourselves. Set an ambush behind the town." So this time he's actually outright saying, alright, hey, you know what? Y'all can take the stuff from this place. Don't, you're not going to get in trouble again if somebody keeps stuff for themselves. But otherwise, do all the same stuff you did at Jericho. Maybe not the, marching around and blowing trumpets and whatnot, but with the actual fighting part of it, yeah, do that the same. So, verse 3. So Joshua and all the fighting men set out to attack Ai. Joshua chose 30,000 of his best warriors and sent them out at night with these orders: hide in ambush close behind the town and be ready for action. When our main army attacks, the men of Ai will come out to fight as they did before, and we will run away from them. We will let them chase us until we have drawn them away from the town, for they will say, "The Israelites are running away from us as they did before." Then, while we are running from them, you will jump up from your ambush and take possession of the town, for the Lord your God will give it to you. Set the town on fire, as the Lord has commanded. You have your orders. So, also earlier on in verse 2, 1 or 2, it mentions taking all the fighting men, not just a few thousand, to attack the town this time. And out of all those men, 30,000 of them, which is already 10 times more than all the troops that they sent last time, 30,000 are just going to hide and get ready for the ambush. Meanwhile, all the rest of them are going to serve as a diversion or a distraction to lure the armies of Ai away. So then the 30,000 will go in, attack, set things on fire, and basically destroy the town entirely that way. Alright, verse 9. So they left and went to the place of ambush between Bethel and the west side of Ai. But Joshua remained among the people in the camp that night. Early the next morning, Joshua roused his men and started toward Ai, accompanied by the elders of Israel. All the fighting men who were with Joshua marched in front of the town and camped on the north side of Ai, with a valley between them and the town. That night Joshua sent about 5,000 men to lie in ambush between Bethel and Ai, on the west side of the town. So they stationed the main army north of the town and the ambush west of the town. Joshua himself spent that night in the valley. Okay, so wait, is it saying now that 30,000 was the total of everybody involved in the battle, or that there's also a separate ambush of 5,000? It would make more sense that 30,000 is the total and then 5,000 is the ambush in this case. But I mean, either way, that's still a total of 10 times the number of men involved. And even more than was sent last time, just dedicated to the ambush. So, yeah, either way, they're not so much underestimating the people of the town this time. So, they're now pretty much ready for the attack and the ambush. And then we get to verse 14. When the king of Ai saw the Israelites across the valley, he and all his army hurried out early in the morning and attacked the Israelites at a place overlooking the Jordan Valley. But he didn't realize there was an ambush behind the town. Joshua and the Israelite army fled toward the wilderness as though they were badly beaten. Then all the men in the town were called out to chase after them. In this way they were lured away from the town. There was not a man left in Ai or Bethel who did not chase after the Israelites, and the town was left wide open. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Point the spear in your hand toward Ai, for I will hand the town over to you." Joshua did as he was commanded. As soon as Joshua gave this signal, all the men in ambush jumped up from their position and poured into the town. They quickly captured it and set it on fire. So, plan has been enacted, and ambush successful. Makes you wonder what the distance was between them, like between the groups of soldiers. That, I mean, because it says as soon as Joshua gave the signal of pointing his spear, the men in ambush then poured into the town. Was the pointing of the spear itself actually the signal to the ambushers? Or was that just very coincidental timing? Footnotes. At the Jordan Valley there, Hebrew says the Arabah. Again, Arabah was probably the actual name of it, especially in Hebrew, but Jordan Valley helps us understand a bit better maybe how close they still were to the Jordan River. And, you know, maybe if you could find a map of the area related to that time, you might be able to get a better sense of where this is all happening. Footnote at Bethel. Some manuscripts lack the part that says or Bethel. Because the ambush was between Bethel and Ai. But, I mean, it could still be possible that, like, you know, armies from both towns just, like, chased after the main Israelite army in the same direction. And partially as a result of that, neither group was able to see the ambushing army. But either way, obviously the point there is nobody was left to defend the town. So then ambush quickly is able to come in, take over, and burn everything. Okay. Verse 20. When the men of Ai looked behind them, smoke from the town was filling the sky, and they had nowhere to go. For the Israelites who had fled in the direction of the wilderness now turned on their pursuers. When Joshua and all the other Israelites saw that the ambush had succeeded and that smoke was rising from the town, they turned and attacked the men of Ai. Meanwhile, the Israelites who were inside the town came out and attacked the enemy from the rear. So the men of Ai were caught in the middle, with Israelite fighters on both sides. Israel attacked them, and not a single person survived or escaped. Only the king of Ai was taken alive and brought to Joshua. So, once the town is burned, the smoke is visible to the Israelite army, and they take that as their cue basically to turn and start attacking instead of running away. And at that point, you'd almost imagine that catches the soldiers of Ai by surprise a little bit. They're suddenly turning back around on the offensive instead of running. So some of them might have tried to run back the other way, but then they would see the smoke and realize they don't have anywhere to go back to. And not only that, but there were more Israelites coming from the direction of the town, also attacking them. So then it winds up being they just close in on them, and yeah, seemingly fairly easy victory from there. Okay, verse 24. When the Israelite army finished chasing and killing all the men of Ai in the open fields, they went back and finished off everyone inside. So the entire population of Ai, including men and women, was wiped out that day, 12,000 in all. For Joshua kept holding out his spear until everyone who had lived in Ai was completely destroyed. Only the livestock and the treasures of the town were not destroyed, for the Israelites kept these as plunder for themselves, as the Lord had commanded Joshua. So Joshua burned the town of Ai, and it became a permanent mound of ruins, desolate to this very day. At least the day of this being written and probably originally told to the people. Might as well wrap up this section. Joshua impaled the king of Ai on a sharpened pole and left him there until evening. At sunset, the Israelites took down the body, as Joshua commanded, and threw it in front of the town gate. They piled a great heap of stones over him that can still be seen today. Again, same to this very day time frame. So, the whole note about Joshua still holding out his spear that whole time, kinda is reminiscent of one of the earlier battles. I forget which one it was, but like it was one where Moses was holding up his staff, and as long as he was able to hold up his staff, the Israelite army was successful. But if his arms dropped, then they started losing. To the point where I think Aaron and maybe one of the priests was there, like, holding up Moses' arms. Has a similar vibe to it with the whole Joshua holding his spear out. But anyway. Footnote there, again, with destroyed being either destroying or giving things as an offering, but still, complete consecration of things or people to the Lord. Footnote there. I means ruin. So it probably wasn't actually called that by the people who lived there. But in this reading, it's called that because, Ai means ruin, and the town was just left in ruins. So, Whole place is destroyed. All 12,000 people apparently die. They still take the livestock and the treasures as plunder. But otherwise, yeah. All the rest of it's gone. Everything from that town. Yeah. And then I wonder if the heap of stones was also meant as a monument similar to like some of the altars that were set up for previous things. But it doesn't really describe it as an altar because you wouldn't really put an altar on top of somebody, right? I don't know. Anyway, point is, whether or not it was intended, that could have served as some sort of memorial. Okay. So that's that. Then we get to verse 30. Then Joshua built an altar to the Lord, the God of Israel, on Mount Ebal. He followed the commands that Moses, the Lord's servant, had written in the book of instruction. Make me an altar from stones that are uncut and have not been shaped with iron tools. Then on the altar they presented burnt offerings and peace offerings to the Lord. And as the Israelites watched, Joshua copied onto the stones of the altar the instructions Moses had given them. Okay, I was kind of assuming one of the altars that they had set up after crossing the Jordan River was this altar that they were instructed to set up, but apparently not. So now that's getting set up. Footnote just makes a cross-reference with Exodus and Deuteronomy in terms of, like, the instructions for that altar being built. I remember that being mentioned in Deuteronomy, not so much in Exodus, although maybe that's just because it's been, like, probably a few months now, at least. Footnote at altar. Hebrew just says onto the stones, rather than the stones of the altar. But, like, what other stones would the stones be in this context? Anywho. Alright, verse 30. This is all verse 33? That is a long flippin' verse. Why is it that long? Anyway, I might just read through to the end of the chapter then. So, here we go. Verse 33. Then all the Israelites, foreigners and native-born alike, along with the elders, officers, and judges, were divided into two groups. One group stood in front of Mount Gerizim, the other in front of Mount Ebal. Each group faced the other, and between them stood the Levitical priests carrying the Ark of the Lord's covenant. This was all done according to the commands that Moses, the servant of the Lord, had previously given for blessing the people of Israel. Joshua then read to them all the blessings and curses Moses had written in the book of instruction. Every word of every command that Moses had ever given was read to the entire assembly of Israel, including the women and children and the foreigners who lived among them. So now they've finally gotten to some of the things that Moses had instructed them a while back that they were supposed to do once they entered the promised land. Now, I don't know if it was just because of sheer proximity to the Jordan River, or why exactly this stuff now is coming after some of the fighting. Maybe it was the proximity to Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim. But in any case, yeah, that now they're doing a bunch of this stuff that Moses commanded. I almost kind of wonder, like, it mentioned there being a valley in between, you know, the Israelite army camp as they were preparing to attack Ai, and then, you know, Ai itself, like, valley in between. I wouldn't so much as assume that Mount Ebal and Gerizim were, like, the mountains on either side of that valley in between the armies during that attack. But it could be a possibility and would also make some sense out of why they hadn't done this stuff already. But that's just me kind of trying to fill in some possible gaps and or answer possible questions as to why it played out in that particular sequence of events. But anywho, okay. And with the reading of all the instructions, that especially, I think, sort of fulfills this whole Lord's Covenant being renewed. Because they would have read the entirety of the covenant again. Okay, so it's pretty obvious that the prior defeat was mostly because of them disobeying God. I mean, there were some other factors that you could maybe look into as reasons why it didn't go well the first attempt. Like, this time they also had a better strategy, it would seem, and they sent more men to fight this time. But, you know, given what happened in chapter 7, I think chapter 8 makes it abundantly clear that, you know, if the Israelites weren't following God's commands, then the battles were not going to go well. And then, for whatever reason, I'm not 100% sure on it. Maybe it had to do with the geography relative to the mountains and maybe other people groups that they had to fight who were living near there. I don't know, but then they basically followed up on the commands that Moses gave them, or possibly God through Moses, about, you know, assembling on the mountains either side of the one valley and basically reaffirming the covenant that was given to them by God through Moses before. But now that they're in the promised land, they've, like, kind of renewed and reestablished that. Or at the very least, reviewed it once again. But anyway, as always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell if you're on YouTube to get updates when I post new videos. If you see this over on Rumble, give me a follow there. Make sure you look down in the description either way to get info on other social media pages and all that good stuff. And leave comments down below there with any thoughts you have. So, that's going to do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. But whatever the case is, until next time, stay cool, people.